Coffee plants have survived in some of the world's most challenging environments, from the cool, misty highlands of Ethiopia to the sweltering lowlands of Brazil. But how have these plants managed to adapt to changing climates, pests and diseases so effectively? The answer lies not just in their genetics, but in a remarkable biological process called epigenetics. First, let's break down what epigenetics means. In simple terms, it refers to changes in gene expression that do not alter the underlying DNA sequence. Instead, these changes occur due to chemical modifications that act like switches, turning certain genes on or off. Think of it as a volume control for genes, adjusting how loudly or softly they are expressed. In coffee plants, these epigenetic modifications help them adapt to environmental stresses, such as drought, pest attacks, or nutrient deficiencies, more rapidly than through traditional genetic mutations. So, how exactly does this work in coffee plants? Epigenetic mechanisms include processes like DNA methylation, histone modification, and the action of small non-coding RNAs. Let's take a closer look at each one. DNA methylation involves the addition of methyl groups to the DNA molecule, usually at sites called CpG islands. When methyl groups are added to a gene, they act like a chemical switch, turning that gene off. For coffee plants, this can mean shutting down growth-related genes to conserve energy during a drought, or activating stress response genes to increase resistance to pests. Research has shown that coffee plants use DNA methylation to adapt quickly to sudden environmental changes. This ability can make the difference between survival and death in rapidly shifting climates. Histones are proteins around which DNA is tightly coiled. By adding or removing chemical groups to these histones, coffee plants can change how tightly or loosely their DNA is wound. When DNA is more tightly coiled, certain genes are silenced. When it's looser, those genes become active. Histone modification allows coffee plants to fine-tune their physiological responses. For instance, they can close their stomata to reduce water loss during a heat wave or increase their production of protective compounds when facing a fungal threat. Small non-coding RNAs are like microscopic traffic controllers. They can bind to messenger RNA, the molecule that carries genetic instructions for protein synthesis, and either degrade it or block its translation. This effectively silences specific genes without changing the DNA itself. These RNA molecules allow coffee plants to respond dynamically to stress. If UV radiation increases, for example, non-coding RNAs might activate pathways that produce more antioxidants, protecting the plant's cellular machinery. But perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of epigenetics is that some of these modifications can be passed on to future generations. This phenomenon is known as epigenetic memory. Coffee plants exposed to extreme stress may produce offspring that are better equipped to handle similar conditions, even if the DNA itself remains unchanged. Imagine a coffee plant growing in a drought-prone region. If that plant develops epigenetic adaptations to conserve water, its seeds might inherit those adaptations, giving the next generation a head start in survival. This rapid response mechanism could be vital as climate change continues to threaten coffee-growing regions. So what does all this mean for coffee farmers and the future of coffee? Understanding epigenetic mechanisms in coffee plants could revolutionize how we approach coffee cultivation. Farmers could use this knowledge to develop more resilient coffee strains without waiting for the slow process of genetic mutation and breeding. Researchers are now exploring ways to harness these epigenetic tools to create coffee plants that can withstand drought, diseases, and fluctuating temperatures. This could be a game changer for ensuring the future of coffee in a rapidly changing world. Epigenetics reveals just how adaptable and resilient coffee plants can be. By leveraging these natural mechanisms, we might be able to safeguard one of the world's most beloved beverages for generations to come. The next time you sip your morning coffee, remember, You're drinking a marvel of evolution, a plant that has adapted and thrived through millions of years of environmental challenges. For more amazing stories about the science and history of coffee, visit generalwarfieldscoffee.com. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating content. Plus, be sure to check the description below for a link to articles from General Warfield's Coffee that dives even deeper into many of the topics we covered in this video.